Hello there everyone, I am Muma, ex-professional tank player turned full-time streamer and coach. Today I want to talk about Hazard and how you can optimally play him to dominate your ranked games and climb the ladder. I nearly one-tricked him this season to climb all the way to champ, while boasting a 71% win rate over 11 hours of gameplay. My favorite thing about Hazard and his playstyle is the flexibility you have with how you can play him. He shines when brawling, but some of his short cooldowns and high burst damage combos makes him a pseudo-dive hero in many situations too. First, let's talk about his kit and which abilities are the most important. We have to talk about his gun, Bone Spur, and to keep it simple, it's just a shotgun. It can hit pretty hard up close, especially when you consider the 2x headshot multiplier, but to really get much usage out of it, you have to be really close. However, the shotgun really shines when you complement it with what I'd call his most important ability, the Violent Leap. On only a 5-second cooldown, Leap is where you're going to find most of your value and really show off your true carry potential. The follow-up slash you're able to do does a massive 80 damage, but you can also shoot while you're leaping. Practice this combo and you'll find yourself completely one-shotting most 225 HP characters. A really important consideration when thinking about his leap is that the cooldown actually starts when you first activate it. This means if you leap from a really large height when you slash someone under you, your cooldown can sometimes almost be available again. Next we have his Spike Guard. Spike Guard is essentially a Ramattra block that does automatic damage to enemies in front of you while on a resource meter similar to D.Va's Defense Matrix. This ability is absolutely crazy and a huge reason Hazard is so powerful right now. Turns out a 75% damage reduction in an 180 degree angle in front of Hazard is really good. While the block slows you, it can be held for a total of 3.5 seconds before it needs to recharge, but it does enough damage during the duration to actually fully kill 225 HP heroes. The automatic damage can also cleave entire teams for the same damage output, which makes it extremely effective at building your ults. I also have to mention here that blocking does replenish some of his ammo. It's a unique mechanic and a consideration in some fights, but most of the time it's not that important because of how often you should just be cycling your leap damage. Next up is his Jagged Wall. Before I can talk about this ability, I have to say this first real quick. Go into your settings and turn on Jagged Wall uses pre-placement controls. The setting being off by default is completely mind-boggling and there's no consideration at all. Just do it. It lets you be so much more precise with your placements. This ability is pretty simple though. Just think Maywall that has less HP but in return does damage and knocks people back. Its obvious usage is to disrupt movement in enemy sightlines, but it's also very useful to help you dodge important abilities, like Ana's Nade or Sleep Darts. Sometimes I'll build it directly under my feet to really throw enemies off guard and dodge things like Earth Shatter. Lastly, his ultimate Downpour. It's pretty simple to understand. Downpour roots enemies for 2.5 seconds and deals 90 damage to them. The ultimate goes through walls and has massive vertical range. The most important consideration for this ultimate can be pretty telegraphed with its cast time, so getting in the habit of flicking it right before it turns the darker purple and officially casts is really important. Hazard's passive Vault is a bit different from other characters' wall climb as it's a lot shorter of a distance and it lets him grab ledges. This passive is hugely important to his kit as it helps him take space and find better engages from high grounds, which essentially shortens the cooldown of his slash. Hazard does have some unique techs I need to talk about too. Firstly, you're able to bunny hop when using your dash. Simply hold your jump key when you lunge and you'll get a little bounce, helping you close a bit more distance to hit that big damage follow-up slash. Another thing worth mentioning is that his leap resets his wall climb. This means you can start scaling a wall, leap, and then scale the wall even higher. Combine this with putting a block under your feet, you can engage from some really crazy locations. It's the kind of play that looks cool and flashy, and while it's good sometimes, you definitely don't want to be doing it super often. Next, I want to talk about how a general playstyle loop should look. First, I have to repeat this again, this hero is really flexible, so having just one playstyle or plan in mind isn't going to cut it all the time. When you need to take space, just barreling down the middle of the map through the hotly contested choke points isn't usually going to be your best course of action. Be really conscious of places you can wall climb to help you get set up on higher angles, or just space you can use your dash purely for movement too. The really short cooldown in this ability makes this pretty safe. You can treat many situations where you're trying to take space almost like you're playing Leapfrog, using the short cooldown of Leap to gradually take space as you close the distance between you and the squishy heroes you want to find engages on. Really be aggressive and try to take risks to find how aggressive you can be, because even if you hop to a really hot spot and the enemy team tries to collapse on you, you should still have your wall and of course the whopping 75% damage reduction available at will. Lastly, we're going to close out the guide with everyone's favorite thing, a tier list of matchups for Hazard and some tips and general strategy against every hero. Against Winston, it turns out a high damage shotgun with a big burst damage combo makes him really sad. Wall is also really good to peel his dives and limit him and his team's ability to use his bubble, so try to look for that. Moira, she's just Moira. She's a 225 HP hero that explodes to your combo, and the most she's going to do is tickle you. Just looking at her direction should have her running for the hills. Kiri can be annoying, but at the end of the day, she is just another 225 HP character that you can burst down pretty effectively once you get on top of her. Just try not to get frustrated forcing out her TP or Suzu with your slash, because those cooldowns are significantly longer than yours, and just keep chasing her around. Like Lucio, Juno's speed can be really annoying, but if you find a way to close the distance and get on top of her, she's really easy to burst down with the slash damage combo. Your ult is also really good against hers because of how much it encourages the enemy team to stack and how fast it moves, often just speeding away from them while they're rooted. I don't really know who's playing Soldier anyway. He might run away from you, but if he wants to try to get in even kinda close to do his optimal damage, it's easy to run at him and slash him off with your shift while blocking his retreat with your wall. Everyone knows how slippery a good Mercy can be, but as long as you get good with Hazard's movement, she can be pretty easy to chase down with a slash in your wall, and she doesn't have boops or CC to stop you. Also, she has 225 HP, and we know the drill. Reinhardt is an interesting matchup, but I'd have to say Hazard's favored. He has lots of unique ways to dodge his swings and shatter with Volt and Wall, and you just gotta be careful about getting pinned, and you should be good. Mei isn't actually too bad because you have lots of ways to deal with getting walled off, and if you stay conscious of when she has ult, it's really easy to dodge with the short cooldown of your left shift. Pharah and Echo share similar strengths and weaknesses versus Hazard, so I'm going to put their section together, but splitting them up on the tier list. Why, you might ask? Well, Pharah is much better at spamming out of your effective range, while Echo's movement leaves her much less consistently in the skybox. With that said, the best tip against the two is to just really get used to playing heights, that way you can at least threaten the slash combo and make them scared. Most of the time, if they're smart, they'll be hard to reach, so we should primarily be looking for other targets, but if they do come in your range, they are a 225 HP character. Against Junkrat, you just have to be creative with the way you move around the map. Don't just barrel down the choke, and instead try to climb over walls or find engages from high grounds. His block is also really good against Tyre because it gives you the 75% damage reduction while also damaging it. Reaper may do a lot of damage against most tanks, but the 75% damage reduction on block makes his shotguns a lot less scary, especially since he wants to brawl in your ideal range. Just use your slash gun combo on him and he'll often have to wraith away. Next we have Bastion. As long as you don't jump into the middle of them when he still has form, he won't be much of an issue with the massive 75% damage reduction available. He's also really vulnerable and easy to hit when the form is over, so just play to bait that out. Like most tanks, Roadhog is one you kinda wanna just ignore. Just try not to let him hook you out of your block and it'll be like he's not even there. You also have good skills to interrupt his hooks on your teammates too, so always look for those. Baptiste's immortality field can be annoying, and if he's using his exo boots well, he might be able to dodge your slash, but his bullets will tickle you and you can often chase him down pretty easily. Holding block and having it damage everyone inside the immortality field, keeping them low, and breaking the drone at the same time is a really crazy feeling. I haven't had the chance to play against too many Ramatras, but most of the time you kinda just want to ignore him. It's easy to wait out his Nemesis form with your block, that's basically just his but stronger, and then when Nemesis is over, he kinda is just not threatening at all. If Venture is popping out of their burrow, it's pretty easy to hit the burst damage combo on them, and your walls can really disrupt their movement if placed well. Venture is really reliant on their abilities, and it takes a long time to cast burrow, so focusing on what skills they have will be super helpful in determining when you can go on them and kill them. Hanzo is pretty easy to play against if you're capable of closing the distance well, and most of the time you are. Just stay conscious of his sightlines and use your block when you need be until you're in dashing range, and then he'll just explode. Cassidy can be a little annoying because of his hinder nade and how much it blocks your movement, but as long as you stay conscious of that and have block available, he should be pretty vulnerable to your dives considering he doesn't have too many movement options. Lucio is an interesting one because closing the distance is so important for Hazard, and speed can make that difficult. Thankfully, Boop is pretty ineffective versus tank, and we know how easy it is to explode 225 HP heroes. My best advice for him is to really pay attention for windows where he doesn't have amp, so it's easier to get on him and just stay healthy using block until you have an opening. Torb can be pretty annoying because it's hard to deal with his sentry gun, but if you stay aware of where it is and try to avoid that line of sight, he can be pretty easy to meat shot and melt when he doesn't have his overload available. Hazard is as good as a quote low mobility tank can be against Widow. It's easy for her to early locate, but if you get close to her, she simply explodes. Using wall to disturb her grapple and maybe block her sightlines can be a cute strat though. Just try to find ways to close the distance. When you're playing against Ball, basically you want to just ignore him. He can't really do anything to you and your dives should be much more effective than his. Maybe hitting him with the occasional slash might be good to disrupt him and knock him back a bit, but it really shouldn't be your priority. And Hiyari playing properly can be super annoying, as she can just play out of your range and be another DPS basically. Her knockback is good at getting away from you, so if you manage to close the distance and take a fight within your range with her, wall placement is going to be the most important thing. Doomfist is a weird matchup because if you're playing versus a good Doomfist, the two of you should basically be ignoring each other most of the time. You can try to slash his dives or wall off his punches, but he's got so much mobility that it can be really difficult. Be careful of him punching you out of your block and into his team as well. If you see him use both his slam and his punch, that can be a good opportunity to try to blow him up, but he's not really your biggest priority. A good break can be pretty annoying. Yeah, her shield's easy to break, and Flail doesn't knock you back very far, but you're also a big target that's easy to proc Inspire off of, and unless you're one-shotting your dive target, the burst healing from her pack mixed with the Inspire healing can often heal them super quickly. With that said, try messing up her bash with the wall and hit the slash on her, and she can just fall over sometimes. Sombra is an interesting matchup because while hack taking you out of block can be really annoying, her small health pool and limited range makes her really vulnerable to your burst combo, so just make sure you're always threatening that. D.Va is one of the hardest tank matchups in my experience, considering she just eats most of your abilities. Thankfully, she can't eat your slash damage or deny your block damage reduction, so just stay conscious of her holding matrix on you and denying your healing, and really look for those windows when she had to fly away or use all of her defense matrix, and you should be good. A good Genji using his movement well can be hard to chase down, and he is capable of deflecting almost all of your abilities, but with your wall and the knockback on the slash, you do have pretty good means to peel his dives if need be. Against the Tracer, if she's playing her range well, she can be super annoying. Yeah, the slash does a huge chunk of her HP, but a good Tracer should be able to stay away from you most of the time. It's very easy for her to get behind your block and shoot you in the back, which can be annoying too. Try to look at her occasionally to threaten her and make her burn cooldowns, but don't try chasing her around most of the time. Your block does basically invalidate her pulse though, so that's cool. Zenyatta is another one of the harder support matchups. If you can get on top of him, the slash shot combo does huge damage, and as long as he doesn't hit you with that pesky foot knockback, your block can often finish him off. Just try to make sure you don't run it down main if you haven't cleansed the Discord off yourself. Ashe can be a pretty tough matchup. She does lots of damage and stays out of your range, especially if she uses her coach gun effectively. Try to avoid fighting in her powerful sightlines and be creative with how you use the map to try to close the distance on her and deny her those really powerful god spots. Sigma shares similar issues as Orisa, with Rock being able to take you out of block. His high damage output and ability to shield off your healing and eat most of your skills can be annoying, but finding walls behind him and your slash damaging through his grasp is awesome. Like Ana, find ways to dodge Rock through your ability usage, as it's a really telegraphed ability. Unlike Orisa, when you get on top of Sigma, he can actually die, so just try to do that. Sojourn is another one of the harder DPS matchups because she has high mobility, making her hard to chase down, and you're also a really easy target to build rail off of. Just try to stay mindful of her sightlines and make sure she's threatened by your burst combo. If you can wall off her slide or get on her when she doesn't have it, you've won though. This choice might be a little controversial, but I'm going to put Lifeweaver in C tier. His movement options make him hard to get on top of, and his petals and pulls can be really annoying. If the Weaver is good, they can time their heals to negate a big chunk of your damage combo, assuming you aren't just one-shotting them. With that said, he isn't going to be doing much damage to you, so he's still worth chasing around, and Wall has some pretty cool interactions with being able to knock people off petals too. Queen is actually another pretty tough tank matchup. Trying to brawl with her is often really tough because of how easy it is for her to get big bleeds on you, and her ult is still incredible and can be built really fast. Your number one priority when playing against her should be trying to dodge her axe to deny the cooldown reduction mechanic and the big heals she gets from it. Maga just does a ton of damage and lifesteals a ton when he's holding both his guns on the enemy tank, and well, Hazard wants to be in that range too. The short cooldown on Stomp is another tool that he has to knock you out of block. Just try not to get into damage trades with him and try to find routes that go past him so you can find the squishy heroes. Really just gotta focus on dodging that Stomp. Symmetra is actually my favorite DPS in the game, and honestly one of the best DPS characters to play against him in my opinion. It's so easy to build beam off his block and his wall, similar to how you would Mei wall. She has lots of HP, so it's hard to burst her down with his slash. Her ult is also amazing versus his ult because you can just TP out of the root. My advice against her is to try to displace her TPs by building your wall on it, and don't be afraid of her before she's built high charge beam, because while the slash gun combo won't come close to killing her, it'll definitely scare her and put her on the back foot. I haven't had the chance to play against too many Zaryas, but the ones I have played against have actually made this matchup seem pretty tough. Your slow telegraph dives make it easy for her to bubble your target and build energy, and when you're blocking, you can't just not shoot her bubbles, meaning she's pretty often high charge. My best advice for her is to play slow and stay healthy using your block and natural cover until she burns a bubble, that way you can try to find a good engage. Ana goes in D tier easily. This is the hardest matchup in the game, which is pretty funny because I actually find it really fun. Finding ways to block her sleep dart or nade through creative movement and ability usage is super challenging, but really rewarding. Sleep dart is the much scarier ability since it stops your big damage reduction, and a lot of the time if you get purpled, you can just hold block and be fine. So just try really hard not to get slept. Engage on her after she's used it, try to dodge it with wall climb or your wall, or even just use the dash strictly to try to dodge it instead of doing it for damage, because if you're in your shotgun range versus her and she doesn't have sleep dart, you've typically won. Orisa has to be my choice for the hardest tank matchup. Spear and her Jav spin denying you from holding block or pushing you around when you try to do the slash combo can be super oppressive. The best way to play versus her is to be creative and try to find engages from angles she doesn't expect. Don't get stuck just trying to fight her. If you're interested in some live coaching with me or want me to review one of your replay codes, check out my website muma.pro, link in description. First time students can use promo code FIRST in all caps for 25% off their first live session. Alternatively, you can check out my Twitch stream where I stream every weekday and often can be found doing reviews for viewers. In conclusion, Hazard is an incredibly powerful and flexible tank with what I'd argue to be the most amount of carry potential in the game currently. I hope this guide helped you out and taught you some things, and in return, if you could just drop a like and comment, it would be very much appreciated. Thanks for watching, and good luck out there.
Like, what is the gremlin angle?
Where's on?
It's okay, you can just leave.